Boom! ZLS 032. Man, I'm excited for today. We've got Adam L. Barrett.
That's me.
Batman himself. And he got a fresh cut just for
I've heard
our conversation. Batman. Oh, sorry.
I did. It's breathtaking, isn't it? Nothing quite like a shorn Adam.
I love it. A shorn Adam is the best Adam. That's what I say.
I've always thought that.
So Adam, how's it going, man? What are you up to these days? What's going on?
Oh, man, what am I up to these days? What a weird question. How am I supposed to start with that? These days, I am trolling my friends' podcasts, trying to become famous by just being a guest star on various podcasts, including this one and anyone else that'll take me.
Who else you got?
Nobody really. No, okay. I mean, I was on.
I'm the friend you're taking advantage of.
Yeah. I was on something with Brendan too, but it was like the pilot one that never really got aired or watched. And so then the NX office hours with that. But yeah, I'm taking advantage of you and anybody else who has podcasts. So if you've got a podcast and you'd like a guest, have me. I don't even know what we'll talk about. Much like this one.
There you go. Well, yeah, man. One of the things I really wanted to talk with you about, one of the things I think that makes you really interesting is I was perusing your LinkedIn profile. I noticed from 1992 till 2010, you're listed as an actor, which I thought was super cool. Like, how does that work? Were you? Is that you coming out of high school? Is that you did you go to school for this? How did that work?
Yeah, I mean, technically all of the above. I guess my first. So before I got into computers and stuff, I wanted to be an actor. And I honestly, if you asked me, I thought I was going to be a movie star. There was just no doubt in my head. I was just waiting for the moment that it was going to happen. And I'm not really good at the other parts of acting. I was an okay actor. I did fine. I did some films, did some stuff. But I wasn't good at the get up and go part where you go on audition and you go to different cities and you get sides and you get an agent. And I didn't want to do that. I was just literally waiting for somebody to come along and be like, oh, "You're wonderful. We want you in our movie." And that just never really happened. So eventually I gave up and went into computers. But yeah, I mean, my first acting gig actually that paid me was in high school. I did this thing called the Saskatoon Soaps, which is an improv theater thing that happened every Friday night in our town of Saskatoon. And I think they literally we just took a cut of the house. So I'd get $100 every couple of Fridays that I did it. And it was just go there and play on stage. And there was kind of a theme and a story that we'd sort of follow. And we would just improv for a while.
Wow.
And then I did
That's crazy impressive, man.
Is it?
Tafadinkin? I can't pronounce the username, but she asserts that you'll be an amazing influencer, and I agree.
Oh my God, it's Fayday.
It's Fayday. Yeah, she is really cool. I think she's on the Angular show now, right?
She's one of those people I want to take advantage of and be on their podcast. So
nice. Well, the Angular show, I've been loving it. I'm good friends with Aaron Frost. We're on a project together, and man, the series they're doing now, I think they just came out with one with Brandon talking about state. They're going through a whole state series. It looks super cool.
Yeah, I've been listening to that. Frosty is super cool. I just like the way he talks.
No, we're getting raided.
Raid.
I'm still getting used to Twitch stuff. But yeah, going back to the improv stuff. One of the things I would love to do when COVID's over, I really want to try doing something like that. I don't know if it's improv. I want to do something where I get on stage or in front of people. I'd love to try maybe stand up, open night stand up or something like that.
I mean, that's brave. Stand up. That's super brave. That's worse than acting, right? Because acting, you're hey, I'm just doing my thing and I'm pretending to be somebody else. But stand up, you're just you, and you're being judged as you, right?
Yeah.
Make me laugh, funny boy. See how that's going.
But I feel like if you can make that connection with people and get them laughing, just get them, I don't know. It feels like it would be super exhilarating if it goes well. It definitely has the potential to go very, very poorly. Drunk PowerPoint karaoke, that would be fun.
That is a good one. You should do that.
Yeah. I'm more of a on-the-spot person or PubConf once conferences run again. Yeah. So one of my big things for doing this podcast was trying to get better at presenting or just talking in front of a crowd or presenting something to people.
I think you're doing great. I mean, if you want my opinion, which you didn't ask for.
Thanks, Adam. You just said that so you could get back on the show, aren't you?
It's just that I think you're a handsome man with a lot of great ideas, and I just want to ride on that coattail as far as I can. Flattery
will get you everywhere, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Acting. Anyways, so I don't know.
Do you want me to talk more about my failed acting career?
Yeah, I want to.
Everybody wants
more
to hear
about improv.
That, right?
How does someone get good at improv? Like I imagine the only way I think is maybe you just do it a lot and then things get more natural. Is that kind of how it goes?
I think that's pretty much everything. When you want to get good at something, you do it a lot and then eventually it gets easier. I think. But yeah, no, honestly, I think improv is exactly the same way. Like there's a whole bunch of like rules, right? Like you can go to like Second City workshops and they can tell you like, oh, it's all yes and you never block anybody and stuff. And as soon as somebody establishes a reality, that is reality, and you have to go forward with it, and that's the fun. And then embracing the idea of failure in improv is hilarious, right? Because that's the whole thing about improv. Is sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's not. But what it really is live and on the spot. And so the audience is rooting for you, but they kind of want to see you fail too, right? And I've known a lot of really good improvers who fail on purpose, and it makes me sick. But because it actually helps the show a bit, right? If you had a perfect improv show, people would go, oh, that was okay. But if you had one guy break and laugh during like a funny moment or something, whatever, then look, it's live. It feels more energetic. It feels more dynamic, right? So
those like the Saturday Night Live episodes where it's so funny that everyone starts cracking up.
Exactly. Except for that one guy who just always breaks and it's not funny anymore. I can't remember which actor it is, but
yeah, I know who you're talking about. But yeah,
if anybody on YouTube knows, tell us.
I'll highlight any and all comments as I've shown.
He's got his own like late night talk show, right? It's on my brain. What his name is anyway.
I'm spacing on his name. Anyways, he's the guy who does like the interesting celebrity impressions where he like mixes it up and does songs with them. Jimmy Fallon, yes.
Fallon, yes.
There we go. We got it.
We did it.
So at some point, you like acting. You're not getting roles.
You're gonna be a movie star. I was just waiting for it to happen well into my 20s.
Okay. And eventually you figured you'd become a web dev to pay the bills.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, nobody wants to hear this story, but I totally want to tell it. So honestly, I'll spill the beans on how that happened. When I was a really little kid, we got an Atari 2600 XL, the kind with the keyboard, and had a cartridge that said BASIC. And I'm not kidding; it was basic programming in a cartridge. You put it in, and you got a keyboard. You could type. And the book that came with it had a bunch of little programs you could write. It was like, line 10, write this; line 20, write this. And Jennifer wants to hear all my stories.
I do too.
Okay. And so I would do these. And like one of them was like, make lightning crash on the screen. And another was like, whatever. And it's funny to think of these now that I know as a programmer, it was literally like just calling a function that they had pre-made to make lightning crash on the screen and stuff. But I felt powerful, right?
Yeah.
And I wrote like, maybe everybody does this, but I've written literally a million of these in my lifetime. Like a gladiatorial pit battle game where you would say attack, you type attack, and it would say do you hit or miss depending on some random function, and then
every time
you now have 5 hit points.
Yeah. Every time I've come across any kind of new technology, I feel like the first thing I do is I make an RPG game based off of it, which is exactly what you're describing.
Exactly. I remember when Dragon Warrior, the Nintendo game, came out, like the Dragon Quest American Dragon Warrior came out. When it came out, I played it and I went, I've made this game a million times. Because it was doodly, attack, and then it would. How many hit points do you have left? Attack. They died. Yeah. I'm like, wow.
So I think I'm a little bit younger than you. My first interaction with RPG games was Pokemon, and then around a little bit after that, like Final Fantasy started getting really big, like with Final Fantasy VII and stuff dropping. And I was just like,
I think I was well an adult by then. I'm old.
Yeah.
So anyway,
But yeah.
I had this love for computers when I was a child. Then I didn't do anything with it. And then in high school, I had a computer science class, and we did computers. And it was Visual Basic, and I pretty much made exactly the same thing, but with buttons, attack button, and whatever button. And then I didn't think about didn't think about computers a long time because I was going to be a movie star. I was in, High School Musicals, and I was doing my improv shows and stuff. And we did this improv television show after a while. And then eventually I decided to go to school, like university. And I went to university and I was like, I don't know what to take. So I took a bunch of arts and science classes. And one of them I took was computers, where we learned Pascal. This is how old I am, by the way.
Pascal. Wow.
Turbo Pascal, to be specific.
Turbo
and again,
Pascal.
I did really well in it, but I wasn't going to be a computer programmer. That would be boring, sitting at a desk all day and stuff.
It's so interesting you say this. I had such a similar experience. So not like basic. I'm a bit younger, like I said, but I remember getting Visual Basic 6 in a CD from a book and installing that and doing my video game or my RPG game based on that. And I remember thinking, this is kind of cool, but this would be super boring if I was doing it all day. I don't know why I thought that, but I definitely did. And so first time around in college, I took an HTML class, and that was kind of lame. I did just like the HTML part. I liked making stuff happen. And I was just like, I guess this isn't for me. And I pursued writing and actually theology at the time. So, but yeah, sorry to interrupt your story.
Oh, I mean, we're here to learn about you, Zach. This show is the
special guest
ZLS.
Well, speaking of which, what are you going to do your own ALBS? ALBLS.
ALBLS. You didn't even let the Z thing, you just let that go, eh? Crazy. I don't know. I'm going to start a podcast someday. I don't know who. I'm going to lean on all my friends to be guest stars, and pretty much everybody you have. I'm basically just going to copy you, and we're going to see how it goes.
Hey, man, give the people what they want. The people want the ALBLS. So
ALBLS. I love it. It's going to be. So then I went to be an actor. I never did anything good. Sorry to everybody I did shows for. I did some short films.
It said you had a weekly show, and I'm very intrigued.
The improv show, the Flying Fish.
Oh, okay.
Which eventually turned into a bar show too. There are three. Okay, so there's three different improv shows. There's Saskatoon Soaps, which was a weekly on stage show. Then later on in life, I did the Flying Fish Fun Factory as a TV show. Then later on in life, after that, the Flying Fish Fun Factory got together and we just did bar shows. We just go to bars and do the improv show there, kind of thing. And they're murder mysteries and that kind of stuff. And then I did a couple of short films, a couple of feature-length films, and all of them were just fantastic films that you'll probably never ever see. But I did get an IMDb page out of it and a Kevin Bacon number of 3, which means I was in a movie with Henry Wolf, who was in a movie with somebody who was in a movie with Kevin Bacon. So 3? Yeah. Woohoo!
Nice. Anyway. I'm seeing if I can find you now on IMDb.
There used to be a thing. You'll have to look Adam Barrett. There used to be a thing, and I think I'm number 4, maybe, called the Oracle of Bacon, and you could find it But then they changed their database to not use the IMDb one. They're using a different one, and I don't appear in that anymore. But I used to be able to prove it. I used to be able to just send you a link and say, look, I have a Kevin Bacon number of 3.
Yeah. I found an Adam Barrett, but I don't think it's you. Adam Barrett is an actor and producer known for Trigger.
That's not me. That's the other guy.
That's the other one.
That guy. You know that guy? I'm the one who has Of Note on there, if you find it. But for a little while they had
Thy Neighbor. Is that you?
No. The only show I'll have on there is Of Note.
Of Note. Okay.
Yeah. There was a little while there where they offered a free month or something, and I had my picture and bio and everything up there, and I was like, this is awesome. But then after the month expired, I wasn't going to pay $15 a month, so I took it down. So now it's just my name.
Gotcha.
And I think one of my friends commented that I stink on it or something. Anyway, so that was life. And then the thing that kind of brought me back to programming actually was a game called Neverwinter Nights. Did you ever play Neverwinter Nights?
No, but I've heard of it. I remember seeing it in the store.
Yeah, it's like a Dungeons and Dragons computer game.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. But the best thing about it was that you could make your own stories, and they had a scripting language inside of it, NW script. and you could like literally we wrote an incredible amount of code for people who didn't know how to code. Like I didn't really know how to code at that time.
Yeah.
And I think we did a whole system, like we were trying to build the next World of Warcraft, but in this tiny little like one server that could hold 32 people max kind of thing.
Dude, that's so cool.
It was crazy. And so like that was the big thing that led me to be like, I could do computers. I could sit in a desk all day. And then I had a friend of mine that was like, hey, do you want to come be like a QA guy at my company? And I was like, sit in a desk? Sure. And so I did. And I went from QA to programmer eventually. And that's when it all started to happen.
There you go. There you go. So, dang. So Aaron Frost, I talked to him a lot. He started in QA too. And he feels like being a QA is like the perfect background for becoming a web developer.
Yeah.
And I kind of see that. It's funny. My wife actually worked in QA for my last company a little bit. And it was funny because she like exclusively tested my stuff. And I would always joke that we finally found a way for her to make money doing what she does best, which is pointing out my faults.
Right. Absolutely.
So
it's exhilarating. Finding the shortcomings in other people is just especially your significant other.
Absolutely. But yeah, just talking to her about like thinking about how she was thinking through things. It's like, it's definitely like a different way of thinking about these things. Like just taking something and turning it on a slightly different dimension and putting like a light on it. So yeah, it was super interesting to talk to her. I'm curious if you think similarly about like having a background in QA as well.
I think so. I mean, I found it really frustrating myself, but it was good. Like, so I would, we were QAing essentially what were like, what do you call surveys essentially? Some of them had fancy interfaces and stuff, but they were essentially surveys. And so it was a lot of like
SurveyMonkey kind of stuff, or
that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was basically qualitative and quantitative research. This company called iTrax that I worked for, and the programmers would make all these kind of surveys and send them out, and the QA would like basically go through them and make sure every button worked and everything, whatever it did. And for me, it was a matter of like something wouldn't work, and I'd just open it up and I'd be like, and here's how you fix it. So all my bugs, I would just also like write, and here's how you would fix it. And eventually I was like, can I just be a programmer? And they were like, yeah, sure. And then I went and built my own crazy interfaces and stuff on these surveys and qualitative research exercises. It was kind of fun.
I will say though, whenever I got prescriptive stuff in bug reports, I was like, ugh. I don't think that's true.
As a programmer, later I went, oh God, don't tell me how to fix this. Yeah, I will tell you how it's.
Well, no. So I would talk with most of the QA people we worked with were like high school kids that were coming in like trying to get a start, interested in the industry. I would always, my advice to them was always just diagnose the problem. Don't give a prognosis. Like just say exactly what happened and exactly what you observed. Don't try to take that next step yet. Like that's kind of my job. But like when it is your job, try to make that thing first and make that discrete from whatever comes next. Because otherwise, if you let those two things blend, you're gonna like confuse yourself.
You're also gonna learn things though.
You will. You will. But yeah.
I agree with what you're saying. As a programmer, I actually didn't like it when they would try and tell me what was wrong. I'd be like, "You don't know what's wrong.
You don't.
I'll tell you what's wrong."
But
that was 100 years ago. Like I got excited about UE back then, the Yahoo User Interface Library. Do you even know what I'm talking about when I say that?
Nope.
You young summer child.
Nope.
Yeah. So like. In the age of jQuery and whatever, there was this Yahoo user interface library, and it was like very big, and it had some cool demos, like stuff that sounds ridiculous now, but drag and drop. You could like click on something and drag it somewhere else. Dude, and like, oh, it was crazy.
Drag and drop is so powerful. I was just talking to John earlier today, John from Narwhal, and we were talking about drag and drop. I was like, oh yeah, I've done drag and drop before, and it's like super powerful. I don't know why I don't use it, but. Yeah, it is so underused. I feel like.
Oh man, somebody else feels B-Man feels my UE Well, maybe he liked it though.
He
He
says Yui was stunning, but Josh, I think, is saying he's not a fan at the time.
It had this incredible amount of documentation that was completely useless. Like there was just so much documentation telling you every interface and every class and everything, and just not at all how to use it at all.
Yeah.
And it was just awful. And I remember when I started to go down the jQuery thing, and the jQuery documentation was like, here's what it does, but here's also why you would use it, and here's when you would use it. Here's a couple examples. I was just like, oh, this is so much better. Everything is so much better. And when did the Mozilla docs become a thing? Is that later? Is that HTML5 only? Yeah, MDN. Yeah. MDN. I don't know when MDN really got popular, but I mean, it was pretty early on. Okay. The tree components, those were great.
Yeah, MDM saved my life so many times. I feel like, I don't know, I'll just go into some web API and I'm like, oh, this is not that bad. Like drag and drop, for example.
It's almost like a daily thing, MDN, for me right now. I'm actually really worried about like all the changes going on at Mozilla and firing all the people.
Yeah, they just let a bunch of people go, and
Because what does the future of MDN be? Because honestly, like I think I owe half my job to it. A quarter of my job to like Stack Overflow, and the other half of my job to MDN. Yeah, because I don't remember this stuff. Here's an important note, kids. If you want to be a programmer, you don't have to worry about remembering stuff. You just got to learn how to look it up.
Well, if MDM goes down, you might need to start remembering.
I know. This is where, somebody will cache it. But
there we go. Internet time machine. Where are you at?
Oh man. But yeah, and then well, again, nobody cares about this story, but I'm going to tell you anyway.
I want all the stories, Adam. Bring them all.
So I can take it. After the place where I was doing the surveys and market research exercises, I went to an agency, and I was like, where we like make websites for clients and stuff, and I was on the web apps team, and I was very much jQuery. Everything was a jQuery plugin. I remember I had this jQuery plugin that was literally just a function that I added to a plugin, like added to the plugin namespace, like it was crazy. And then this fella who I still respect to this day is awesome, Dave Mosher. He came on as a consultant, and he showed me and showed the web apps team that like, don't hold the state in the DOM, hold the state outside of the DOM and reflect that here.
State is a trigger word on this podcast. I've said it before.
Well, this is like the equivalent of boilerplate. If I say state,
no. Maybe that could be my thing. I don't know, but no, I think so. So state. Well, we were just talking about this earlier today, right? Because I was talking about how I think Angular. It's interesting how Angular doesn't like purposely address state in any of its docs. Like, kind of says services. And it introduces the topic of a service, but it never says use this for state.
But I mean, when you're saying state, you mean like, because they have inputs, and you got a class instance which you can just put data on there and stuff, and you can change it. And it even like it's reactive state in the sense that like if I change those properties, whether I do it programmatically as an input or just like in a method or something, the template re-renders, or not re-renders, but like. That's my React.
Change detection runs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because it's like React and Vue, they have like these APIs. I feel like that are specifically there for managing state, like hooks. Like the Vue, there's the new composition API that me and Wes struggled with on live stream, and like I don't know, I kind of just like. For how opinionated Angular is, it seems remarkably unopinionated when it comes to state. Like here's some tools, like you said, the inputs and the outputs, and like here's RxJS, and we rely heavily on this, and here's services over there, and kind of find your own way to determining state.
Have you know what that might be a product of, in my personal opinion?
What's that?
I think there's kind of two ways to look at it. I almost want to show you my talk with this diagram, but there's kind of two ways to look.
Do you want to share your screen? You can if you want.
I would have to find it.
That's okay. Don't worry about it.
Bad radio. But there's two ways to look at your app, right? And honestly, they're so similar that it's just a philosophical difference. You can even have two people on the same team for years who are thinking about their app differently.
And they never know it.
Yeah, and honestly, but it'll come up every now and then in discussions, and they'll be very confused by each other's opinions. But
Yeah.
there's where the app is in the browser, and your app is like your state, and you've got your components or whatever is your UI to that, and your servers are just serving your application, which lives in a browser. It's like, oh, I'm going to use that for storage or calculation or whatever. And then the other way, and I think a very common way, especially maybe in Angular users, is no, my application lives on the server. My web view is a view to my application.
Mm-hmm.
And those are subtle but important differences. And I wonder if, because Angular is so much leaning towards my application is the server to which the web is a view to my application. It's the interface, that they don't expect you to hold much state. Like, they don't need to hold state, because you're just going to like fetch it and update it from the server. The server is where the source of truth is. It's not just storage. That's the application. And this is just your interface to it. Get what I mean? But then, like, when you start thinking
I see what you're saying.
Jamstack terms and PWAs, it's like, no, the client is the application, and I'm just using the server for storage and security and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm very much like, the app is what's running in the client. The app is what's running in the browser, rather. And like, I don't know, maybe it's just a function of most of the apps I've worked on, but like there's never been the server. There's never that in my mind. It's like, this is a system. The client is part of that system. It's an application running in the system. The server is an application running in the system as well, but its job is to just like send some stuff over to the client when asked, or to, WebSockets or however you do it. So let's talk in terms of actors. Actors.
Now, does he mean acting or the actor model? Or is it both?
We'll find out. Josh, what do you say? What say ye?
But yeah, but you know what? I think like you too. I think of like it is the client is the application. Just like mobile apps kind of have that idea. Both. All right, actors and flow. We're gonna figure this one out.
Yeah.
We're gonna put together the actor model and acting. We're gonna make it work. There's gonna be the stage, the lights. I don't know what the lights will represent. We'll figure something out. Anyway,
the lights are your eyes. What? the user's eyes looking at the screen.
Oh,
I guess the pixels would have been a better one. I don't know.
Pixels could be the stage, right? Because this is what if the users are the audience, and the pixels are the stage, and then the actors are the things that are like, there's probably a thing in there. What was I going to say though? But I think there's a lot of developers out there who do not think that way. Who think like the server is the app, and I'm just like, why are you guys overcomplicating it? Why are you Why are you doing those calculations in the browser? You should be doing that on the server. I have that argument a lot.
Being a software designer that wasn't a web developer for a couple of years before getting into web development, I always thought of it like, what's the big deal? Like, just like have a view and like have stuff send over and show it. Like, no big. But yeah, I think that's like a disservice to what apps are, what front end apps are, and what they can do. I think it's the proper model is thinking of it as like a distributed system. But
yeah. I agree. But I don't think we're a majority even. Do you know what I mean? I think optimistically, I would say put down the middle. It's differently than that.
Yeah, and I think there's actually a lot of people, especially in the Angular world, that belong in sort of that philosophy, because I think there's a lot of people who do Angular on the front end, but they're doing like they really think of themselves mainly as back-end developers, where they're working on like
Angular is the thing they have to do to make the thing look right. Right,
and Angular's like the afterthought for them, which is super interesting. I have a friend, a good friend of mine from my last job, who's now like working as a Scala developer, but they're using Angular on the front end. And I'm like super excited because I'm like trying to get all into the weeds with him about like, well, have you figured out RxJS yet and all this stuff? He's like, man, it's not even a thing. I just do Scala. That like, I guess I do Angular sometimes. So I don't know.
But I mean, that's a huge way to think about it. I actually had a talk too that I did a little while ago that was like, You know how, at least in my experience, there's a lot of people who, they'll run a Rails server or they'll run a, some sort of Java-based server thing, and they just want to like, we're going to send you the pages, and we just want to like, there's this one calendar that needs to be special, or this like, we want to add some drag and drop to the list to reorder. But we don't
really need JavaScript on it.
Exactly. They want as little as JavaScript as possible, and a lot of them will like go to the jQuery idea. They'll just be like, it's just a little jQuery. It just it enhances the DOM a little bit to make it a little better for the user. And I think Svelte should replace all of that right now, because Svelte is like so easy to just like sprinkle in, because you can even make like a web component export of Svelte, but you can also just make like a what's the interface where you call new on it and you pass it an element, just like old jQuery like UI elements used to be, except that you get all the awesomeness of Svelte, which is like reactive updates, this super easy and recognizable, CSS JavaScript stuff going on with HTML templates.
Well, so Svelte is super interesting to me, I think, for some similar reasons as you're thinking. Like the fact that it is the disappearing framework, that what you're shipping has, it's not Svelte. There's no Svelte code there. It's just all kind of,
there's a bit of a lie there. There's a little runtime code.
I haven't got my hands super dirty in it, but just the thought of that it can come out, it spits out something where there's not. With Angular, they're like shipping the whole farm, right? Like you're shipping the whole change detection engine out each time. So something like that.
And trying to ship less and less, though, right? Because I feel like Angular's on the right track with that. Like Svelte, like dove headlong, and they're like, okay, because we're already like doing this client side, doing this like at build time, let's go all hog wild on that.
Let's go all the way.
But and to some amazing things, and I think the potential is even more so, right? Because like what Svelte can really do, it's amazing how little code they ship, but they can also ship really performant code, because they can do things that like no programmer ever would. Like, for example, here's my ignorant opinion, but way back in the day when I was writing Backbone and then Angular started to get popular, one of the reasons
AngularJS or Angular?
Yeah, AngularJS. I'm old, like really old. Anyway, and this AngularJS started to get popular. I remember being really kind of like, the only thing, and there was lots, but in my brain, the only thing that makes this thing so popular is that instead of calling .get and passing a string for what property you want, you could just do dot and the property and like treat it like a regular JavaScript object. And I was like, that's why. And to be honest, I think that was a big part of it. Like it wasn't the only thing, I'll give you, but there was a whole thing about declarative and blah, blah, blah.
Dude.
But I think a lot of it was just that. But anyway, my point was, back to Svelte, you could just do something where, okay, every time you mutate anything, call a function that says I mutated something, so that we can like re-render or check up on that later. Nobody would ever do that, because that would be the most tedious bullcrap in the world. But you can get the compiler to do that. You can just be like, scan, hey, this was a mutation. We'll just add a little function right after that that says check this stuff.
Yeah.
And so you can make this incredibly performant JavaScript, right? Or even WASM. I don't know. Someday.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't like that. I don't like the idea of WASM getting in the middle of a lot of stuff. But
what do you mean by that? Getting in the middle of a lot of stuff?
So getting off to a tangent, but I think like
that's the show. Maybe you haven't seen ZLS before.
I am ZLS, Adam. but yeah, the way I see it, the thing that's nice about doing these JavaScript frameworks is, well, I really like JavaScript for one, but for two, I feel like the big benefit of this is we're actually writing in the code that's, well, as at least very close to what's actually being shipped over. And so like thinking about that, you don't have to go through these abstractions to make things happen. I feel like as soon as you put like WASM in there, and the APIs are going to have to ship with that, and like the binaries, like it's just you're further away from the metal. And I understand like you'd want to do this if you're doing like game engines or stuff like that, but like so the idea of Blazor. So Blazor is the C# framework. That's I'm not super familiar with it, but my understanding is you ship out binaries and you use WASM to let it run. And just the idea of like debugging that and going through all that, it seems gross to me.
See, that's interesting because like, you know, you, for example, let's say like TypeScript, which is not really close to the metal in the sense that that's actually going to get compiled away into some different JavaScript. That's probably going to get minified and Babelified into some other JavaScript, which is then going to go to the browser and be transformed into some C# calls and blah 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 blah. I don't think it's as close to the metal as you think it is. And you could say, yeah, debugging that would be awful, because I remember when CoffeeScript came out and we were using CoffeeScript, and debugging that was awful until they invented source maps, which was awesome. Yeah. And now we have source maps. And so the same idea would be like, yeah, you get this WASM code, but it's going to give you a source map, right? And you can source map WASM stuff. So you can be like, well, I had an exception, and it was on this line of this code, which happens to be my C# code. Or, you know, in this case, C++ or whatever language you're writing in your Python code. There must be a Python WASM thing, right? There must be.
Probably. That would be kind of interesting to see.
I think the only thing missing right now is like you don't have DOM access in WASM, right? So you need this like JavaScript layer that is just like, I'm going to receive my stuff from the WASM code and I'm going to turn it into DOM diff stuff changes, you know, very similar to React, actually, probably.
Yeah. So you're kind of having to go through a JS wrapper to do any kind of web APIs. I don't know. Maybe they figured out a better way of doing that, but I don't know.
But I think though,
I'm stuck in my ways, Adam.
But you don't have to be like, you know what I mean? Like JavaScript isn't going to change. JavaScript isn't going to go away. But I think this is just going to open the web. If we have like a good DOM library that is just very performant, but it's like that WASM to DOM bridge thing, then I think people could program in whatever language they want and still have like DOM controls. They could make their own frameworks and stuff in their language, however their language does stuff.
Well, I mean, they've been trying to do that for a long time.
They've been trying, but now they can actually do it, right?
I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe it when I see it. I do think Blazor is going to take off. It's going to be a thing. I don't think it's a
question
thing yet.
That I don't know the answer to, and maybe one of the viewers does, is if you call like a WASM method, like something from the WASM module, does it have to be asynchronous? Or can you synchronously call a WASM method and get a synchronous response back? Because if it has to be asynchronous, then I can sort of see, okay, well, you get into the same problem you do with web workers. It's like, yes, you are, you know, going to something that could be more performant, do whatever. It has to be async. See, this is where the problem lies. We need like a synchronous bridge. Okay, well, time to learn some C++ and solve that problem.
There you go. But yeah,
what are we talking about now, Zach? I don't even remember
what were we talking about before we got into
acting.
There was something we had moved on from acting. I think there's something I was going to talk about. And then we went into OSM. Svelte, maybe
jQuery plugins.
Maybe so. No, not jQuery plugins. I don't know.
Backwards in my brain.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, so it came up when you said, where you talked about TypeScript being an abstraction. I don't know. Yes, I see it. I see what you're saying, but
and even more than just TypeScript, there's like the TypeScript plus the Babelify plus minification stuff that we
how do you feel about TypeScript? Yeah, how do you feel about TypeScript, Adam? So for background, for people listening who might not know, I came in with TypeScript. I kind of learned TypeScript before I learned JavaScript, because I'm coming in right as Angular 2's coming out. And that's my introduction to web development as a whole. So I figured out TypeScript, and then I like reverse engineered JavaScript is kind of how I went in my journey. So
that's fascinating.
Yeah, at the time, it was super interesting because everyone's railing against TypeScript at the time. Right now, TypeScript is super accepted, I think, and a lot of people like it, and in general has favorable views.
It's bigger than a hula hoops.
Yeah, but at the time, like there was a lot of stuff that was boom, nice. But yeah, at the time, everyone was like, I don't know, losing their minds because like Angular's ruined everything. I'm going away. I'm going to React and never coming back. So
Angular did ruin everything. I don't know. I'm just kidding.
I love seeing what Angular got right is still bizarre to me. Like TypeScript was such a risky choice, and ArcGIS I think so too. Extremely risky.
ArcGIS is the best choice. And that's if I had one thing I really like about Angular. It's how RxJS is just like the norm in the Angular community. Like RxJS is amazing. It's probably my favorite thing in JavaScript. And the fact that Angular people just are like, oh yeah, we've been using that forever. It's just amazing to me. For anybody who doesn't know, I'm new to Angular as of February, pretty much. I mean, I dabbed my toe in it a couple times, but I never like built a project.
Well, Angular too. You've been in
Angular
JS in the past. Yeah.
No, I avoided AngularJS.
Okay.
Because when I tried it, I was like, why do people like this? There's so many terms and providers and whatevers and
one of us. Welcome to the fold, Adam.
It's not my favorite, but it does get the RxJS thing right. What was I going to say though? But as for like my journey into TypeScript, so a long time ago I started with CoffeeScript before source maps, like I said, and it was awful. And I always felt myself.
So CoffeeScript is like I don't know. I assume it's like some flavor of JavaScript.
Okay, so that
compiles to JavaScript.
Unless somebody tells me I'm wrong, it was the first of those, at least to get popular, where it was like, I'm going to compile to JavaScript. You're going to write something that looks not much like JavaScript. It was actually a little more Ruby-esque. Okay. It was neither Ruby nor JavaScript. It was CoffeeScript. And it really like had a lot of good enhancements that actually I think influenced a lot of ES6, and a lot of good things came out of it, including like the arrow functions and classes.
Arrow functions, like chef's kiss.
But CoffeeScript I always found when I was writing it, and the reason I bring that up is because it compiles to JavaScript. I was always writing it in JavaScript, and then I'd figure out how to make that work in CoffeeScript. And what's the point? At that point, I'm like, okay, I would literally even sometimes write it in JavaScript and then take my code and like, okay, manually turn it into CoffeeScript.
Yeah, that sounds awful. That sounds like what I imagine doing like Wasm Blazor stuff would be. But anyways,
I had a bad.
Do you find yourself doing that with TypeScript? Or?
No, but let me get to that. So then I had a bad taste in my mouth. And then several years later, I was actually working as an iOS developer, I think at the time. Somebody was like raving about TypeScript. And I went, I'll give it a try. This sounds great. Because to be honest, in my brain, I'm like, I actually like, strong typing. I like having to think about code before you write it and stuff. And I felt like TypeScript really has that. And so I tried it. And it was awful. And it had this weird module system that wasn't AMD, which I liked at the time. There was, and it wasn't CommonJS either, or the Node.js version of CommonJS. And it was weird, and I didn't like it, and it had all these weird things that weren't JavaScript, and I hated it. And then the great conjunction happened or whatever, where they were like, and I think it mostly had to do with Angular too, right? Whereas they were like, TypeScript is going to be more like just ES6, and then we're just going to add the type thing to it. And then so the module system became the ES6 module system. A lot of the weird parts that I can't remember kind of just became whatever, more ES60. And then now I'm able to like look at it, and then I tried it again, and now I'm hooked, kind of thing. Sort of, well, hooked to a point. Because now I can just write TypeScript like I'm writing JavaScript, and very rarely do I have to do anything other than, and I'm adding types now. Yeah. Except when it bites me. No, I mean, I don't even know. I don't have enough experience. Like, you could get really good at TypeScript. You could like write a stinking, compiler in TypeScript apparently. And I don't mean that in the sense of like you could write it in type. You could write it in the types. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I get confused every now and then when, like, especially with RxJS, there's a bunch of times where it just doesn't work. I get the wrong typing thing, and I'm like, this is not right. And I've got these little squiggles, and I can't make them go away, and I have to do stupid, code Olympic acrobatics to make it go away.
I feel like that I definitely have like my mental model must be wrong in some places with TypeScript, and I feel like I'm pretty used to it at this point, because there's some times where, like, when you define an interface, it will get mad at you if there's additional things on an object that implements that interface, but sometimes it seems like it doesn't. And I don't know. I don't understand what
is that when you define an interface with an object literal. Or infer it with an object literal, then it doesn't like adding extra stuff, right? But if you
So on one of my live streams, this happened to me where I was like, I was working with Mongo, but I said like, I want to have it set up so that I pass a generic to this Mongo method so that I would only accept something of a certain type. But I was missing. I I think the property I was supposed to set something to was called status, but I set it to like complete or something like that, and it let me put that complete property on there, and I was like, what? Why isn't this working? And then I finally like pulled up the type itself and said, oh, it needs to be status, not complete. And I felt so betrayed. Like the whole reason I'm doing the TypeScript and putting these typings is so that it'll tell me I'm being dumb when I'm being dumb.
That was the deal, man. That was the deal.
That's the deal. That was the deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I don't know. Have you experienced what I'm talking
all the
about?
time? This is a constant struggle with me still. I mean, admittedly, again, kind of basically, I dipped my toe again more in TypeScript last year than I did in February, but I really only started using it at work in February. And I have this happen to me all the time where it'll just be like, I don't know what's going on. And I think like, often adding a generic type or whatever, like actually typing with a generic will help me sometimes. And so sometimes I just try doing that. And other times I'm like, I don't know, let's just add more types. And then you go, hey, the squiggle went away. Good enough. Move on.
Well, I think my problem specifically is figuring out how TypeScript is going to determine that an object is precisely a given interface or a object that extends that interface. I think that's a specific problem I've come against a bunch of times. But yeah, I don't know. It sounds like you're maybe describing some other problems too. I don't know. Maybe I've just like struggled enough it against that I just kind of accept it now. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, this is the problem with me talking about something I don't fully understand, and which I never really like. Like the problem with me in TypeScript right now is I don't fully understand it. I kind of get it, and I'm kind of hacking all the time, and I hate that. It's just not how I learn. It's actually why I don't really like Angular, because like when let's say when I learned React, I read through the entire docs, I got an understanding, I did some tutorials, and I'm like, okay, I get React. I tried doing the same thing with Angular, and about like 7 days in, I'm like, I am not going to be able to read the entire docs. There's just too much going on here. Yeah. And I'm not going to be able to remember it if I do. And so it's just like I have this partial knowledge. Even when you're like generating components and stuff or generating your app, there's this whole, the whole bootstrapping thing. I don't know anything about that. But it's in every app I've ever built, but I don't need to know. Yeah. I feel like there's a whole thing in the maybe Angular community or something where like you have to get comfortable with code that you don't understand being there.
Yeah.
But don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
No, I mean that's totally something I feel like I bought in when I bought into Angular. And I feel like I was definitely doing the same exact thing with a bunch of the Java crap I was writing at the time. Like I did fully understand a lot of the stuff with the JSPs and stuff I was writing. I was just getting it to work. But yeah, there's a lot of that in Angular. But I feel like Angular does a really good job of leading a developer to a good enough mental model. And then, so like 95% of the way you'll have, just from like going through their tour of heroes, I think you'll have like a 95% accurate mental model. And for that last 5%, you really need to get into the weeds with like view children, content children, and the whole change detection engine and all that stuff. But for the most part, it's like right there. It's like right there, and you can start doing stuff.
I feel like it's like for the most part, meaning like if I was just going to build an app, I could plunk along and get stuff done. It's when I want to start building like reusable components that like other people can use. That's when I start having to get into these weeds, and I'm like, I don't even know. Like even implementing like control value accessor. There's this like stuff you add to the top of the component.
My favorite.
I think it's a good pattern. I think it's neat, but I can't remember what it is. But there's some stuff you put in the decorator. I don't even know what it does. I'm like, I don't know. It showed me on the tutorial, import this and put that there. So I did, and I have no idea what it really
was. That my tutorial by any chance? No?
Maybe. I don't remember. Could have been. Actually, you know what? I think it was Jennifer Wadella's.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry, Zach. But I'll do yours right away.
Thanks, man. Yeah. The whole thing about providers and dependency injection and all that stuff and understanding like what that really does is definitely a little bit of a trip. And it's something I don't know if I fully understand all the way either. Like I feel like I've gotten most of the stuff with the change detection and view and content children and all the lifecycle hooks. But providers, I feel like there's still like, and maybe that's part of the problem. The mental model is so close that I feel like I don't need to know about some of it, which, yeah, I know that it's kind of grating when you think about it. But.
It's like the completionist in me. I have to hit every square on the
Need
Final Fantasy
100%.
map. Yeah, because I don't want to leave anything behind. And I hate not knowing. I even hate I hate when there's a misunderstanding. Like I sort of get the whole, now that I've been in the Angular world for 7 months now, I sort of get the whole like dependency injection thing. It's if I want one instance, anywhere, but if I need each component to have their own instance, I kind of get it. And then something will go wrong, and I'll be like, but why? I don't even get it. Like, why do all of these say, whatever it is, for root or from root or whatever it was, and then one will be different. And I'll be like, why? What does that do? And I can't find it. And then the other thing is like, there's so much documentation. It kind of reminds me of the UE complaint I had earlier. So much documentation, but when I'm looking for something specific, I often can't find it. And that drives me nuts. For root, for child. Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm
okay. So you're talking about like the methods on the module there.
Yeah. When you're trying to like, say, where am I going to provide this?
Yeah.
And
I don't think there's anything magical about those. I think they're just returning a ng module from that method. So they just, it's just like practice, or I don't know. What's the word I'm looking for? It's convention. There you go. It's conventional to use for root or for child, depending on whether you're loading that into a child or the root like app module. So I don't know if that's helpful, Adam, but I think that's the reason there. So you're like, no,
I get it now.
At all.
Oh, thanks.
Not helpful at all. That's okay.
I just want to know how it's invoked, even how it works, how it decides what. I don't know. There's so much there's so much machinery put into Angular to handle the dependency injection that I kind of just want to understand how it works more. Right?
Yeah.
And that sucks too, by the way. Just while I'm complaining about Angular, there's so much machinery just for the dependency injection. Is it really that important? Couldn't it have been, I don't know.
Well,
easier?
That's something I kind of that irks me a lot of the time. Like, I think a lot of times in Angular projects, you make a service for stuff that doesn't need to be a service. Like, it could literally just be a function, but instead you make it a service so you can use dependency injection to bring it in. I think functions, for most cases, functions do better because they're simpler and you just kind of import them, and if you don't use them, they get tree shaken out. So I don't know. Does Spring really need DI in 4 different ways to do it? No, Spring.
And like, don't get me wrong, I like DI as a concept. Like, I like dependency injection. It's great. What I don't like is like dependency injection frameworks, I guess, where like you have to like do a lot of stuff to serve the dependency injection, as opposed to like, we're gonna just put it in where we need it. Sort of like.
This dependency is not provided, so figure out that, and then get back to me, jerk. And then you come back to it. It's like, nope, you did it wrong. Add that for root on there or something.
So do you find there's a lot of examples of? Do you find that? Oh, don't even get me started on the boilerplate. Do you find there's a lot of examples where you don't actually need a service? You could have just done it with a function. Like I can't think of any off the top of my head.
I think so. I think
because usually, at least in my brain, the service usually has some sort of state. And if it was just like, if the service is coming in with just it's just an object that has a bunch of methods on it, then why is that not just a function?
Well, I've talked about this in several of my previous broadcasts, but I've purposely tried to avoid putting state in a service that I write, because I feel like I said, state's this black hole, and whenever you do that, whenever you put state into a service, you're signing up to write your own state management, and I prefer to use someone else's if I can manage it. But yeah, a lot of services I write, I feel like when I do use a service, it's usually to do something like wrap the HTTP client. HTTP client might be a decent example. Like, do you really need the HTTP client? Could you just use fetch? I don't know.
Yeah.
Blasphemy.
And like, no, but like, yeah. And I mean, even if you're not using fetch, if you want to return observable, you could use the RxJS fetch, right?
Yeah.
But and then maybe this is the key, like for testing,
You
Jest
just
lets you mock at the module
Yeah.
level, right?
So you can mock your import, and it would be the same thing.
Isn't that a better way to do it, right? Because then you've got it like.
I don't want to rag on Angular, because I think I
everybody's
really like a
genius
lot
who
of
works on it. Don't get me wrong. I just have my opinions.
Yeah. Well, so to me, the whole ng module system seems like a second module system on top of like the node module system, and like down to dependency injection too. Like there's dependency injection, and there's importing from another node in your node.
And you can sort of see where the module thing was going.
Yeah.
Right. You can sort of see
exactly
how you wanted to have.
Sometimes you want. Sometimes, yeah. You're breaking up a little bit, Adam.
All this like.
Oh, you're back now.
That don't.
You're back
effects.
now.
They're not going to create.
Oh. Yeah, you're gone again. Crap. Let's see. I wonder if it's Adam or if it's me. I think it's Adam. Let's see. Oh, you moved.
I'm breaking up.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Zach is good. Zach is always good. There you go. All right. While Adam's still cleaning up, let me try to see if I can finish my point. And if Adam comes back, it'll be good. But I think so. A lot of the stuff that the ng module system is trying to handle is whether you need like a singleton or whether you need a specific object or instance of an object per some scope. And like maybe the ng module stuff does a good job of that, but I think like the whole node thing, like you can just have a very similar system set up where you can export an actual object that you pass around, or you can export a factory function that creates an object that you can then create and put into certain places. So I don't know. Maybe I'm missing some stuff there. Maybe I'm missing some of the point. But yeah, I think that's my summary on the idea of it. Let me see if I can message Adam over here. Let's see. Whoops. And let's check Adam. It's coming up gray. Oh, there he goes. I was hoping we could talk. Adam has a board game podcast too. Hoping we could talk about that a little bit, but we might have to end here. I'll give him a few minutes to respond. But yeah, let's see. Just me now. Well, nothing from Adam, but yeah. While he's gone, let me go ahead and pitch tomorrow's guest. Tomorrow we've got Santosh Yadav coming on. We're going to talk about his background. He had an amazing article in depth where he talks about his journey in sort of the web development business, and it's a super cool story. I'm really looking forward to having him on the show and talking to him about it. He's starting a new YouTube channel too. I think it's Santosh Talks Tech, and yeah, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Angular. We're going to talk about a whole lot of cool stuff, and it's going to be a good time. And Adam, I don't know if you're coming back or not, but you were a great guest. It was amazing to have you on. Got to have you on again sometime so we can talk about just life and your board game podcast and all that stuff. I'm actually super interested in talking about podcasts in general. I think like just figuring out. Yeah, Josh can't wait. I'm assuming that's for the Santosh stuff. But yeah, figuring out how to get good at podcasts. Like, I've always wanted to be really good at conversing, and seems like now there's a business for it. So, anyways, I'll see y'all next time on ZLS. Tomorrow is 033 with Santosh, and I'll catch y'all then. Bye now.